As women, we are told from a young age to make ourselves little, to be pleasant to be around, to be agreeable, not entitled, to make room for others, yada, yada, yada. It goes on. These are all ways to control us and prevent us from reaching our full potential. At least that's what I believe. It's a way to prevent us from benefiting from all the world has to offer. And so that's why I'm like, we need a law on carrying ourselves the way we want to be treated. So this is law number 9, act like a queen to be treated like one. And this is actually adapted from one of the original laws in the 48 Laws of Power. This is law 34, which is act like a king to be treated like one. But I'm like, who are you calling a king? I'm wearing pink fur today. Okay, look at my cardigan. Anyway, welcome everybody to the baddest bitch in the building. This is a podcast where we discuss how to milk every system and institution out there, use it to our advantage, like the patriarchy. So we're all just a bunch of farmers milking the system. Someone told me on Instagram that the patriarchy has no udders and we're actually just milking its penis. And I'm like, I hate this analogy so much, but also it's really funny. So anyway, welcome. My name is Nikki. I am your host and the baddest bitch in the building. Not to be confused with you, who is also the baddest bitch in the building. So let me start off by saying this. It's within our power and our full control to set our own price. But we are made to think that our price has already been predetermined and there's no way for us to change it. In the same way that Hermes, Chanel, Ticketmaster will set their prices, no matter how ridiculous they are, and people accept that price, even if they don't pay for it, they still view those things as valuable. People will look at a Birkin bag and be like, okay, this is a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 bag. This is an investment. That's how it's perceived. People look at tickets for really expensive concerts and think this is a very valuable ticket. This is a very valuable show. And people accept that price. Who set that price? Some people sitting in a boardroom somewhere, or an algorithm that was dictated by people sitting in a boardroom. And the truth is, we are all acting. We act differently when we're talking to a friend versus when we're talking to a colleague versus when we're talking to an acquaintance versus when we're talking to a stranger on the street. We all have to act in order to navigate the social world. So stop thinking of that acting as a burden. Look at it instead as an opportunity to cosplay as whoever you want. Sometimes we start acting without even knowing the role we're auditioning for. So you've got to work backwards. I say this in so many episodes, you have to work backwards. In this case, in relation to this law, you want to act like the person that you want to become. And in the OG 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene calls this the strategy of the crown. I got my Bible here, my 48 Laws of Power book. That's like in shambles because I've read it and folded it and highlighted it and everything. But I'm actually going to read to you the definition of the strategy of the crown. All right, I'm holding the book with one hand. I'm holding the mic with another. It says, greetings and salutations. I'm just kidding. I don't know why I did that. Okay, it says, the strategy of the crown is based on a simple chain of cause and effect. If we believe we are destined for great things, our belief will radiate outward, just as a crown creates an aura around a king or a queen. This outward radiance will infect people around us who will think we must have reasons to feel so confident. People who wear crowns seem to feel no inner sense of the limits to what they can ask for or what they can accomplish. This too radiates outwards. Limits and boundaries disappear. But there you have it. That is the strategy of the crown. And it's very simple. You basically just act like a queen and people will pick up on that vibe and will treat you as such. And this strategy is, first of all, it's spot on. Like, this applies to everybody. But it's very straightforward for men, given the world we live in. I know it's frustrating that the default in a lot of cases is for men to get respect right off the bat without even earning it. Whereas women have to prove themselves and prove that they deserve the same respect and the same treatment. In This episode, we are going to talk about how to remove that proving yourself element from the equation. You're going to be treated like a queen just by the way you carry yourself. There is no proving anything to anyone. And a lot of the time as a woman, it's actually a little bit easier to do this. The way women apply this strategy is by enchanting people, just by being yourself. And when you do that right, you'll realize that the world is your oyster. You're enchanting people just on autopilot once you've mastered this law. In this episode, we're going to discuss all of that. We're going to discuss how to set our price and why that's entirely within our control. We're going to go through ways of applying the strategy of the crown to our everyday lives, but doing it in a feminine way. Also, if you're watching the video and you notice a light behind me randomly turned on, it's because I have them on a timer. I'm kind of digging it, and it's pink. So you know what? I'm going to keep it on. It actually looks like I have a crown, and it's like my halo. I have a pink halo. Because if I were to have a halo, it would definitely be pink. This was the universe literally telling me this is the right time to do this episode. So a couple months ago, me and my friend went out to dinner at this Japanese restaurant downtown. It was a little bit like upscale, kind of fancy, not super, super fancy, but it was pretty nice. So we go in and it's like maybe at like 10% capacity. It's pretty empty. I sit in the booth. She sits at the table. So the way the table was set up is that in the booth, I have a view of most of the restaurant and they can also see me. And my friend was just facing me. And I was wearing a long black dress off the shoulder. I was wearing a pair of black heels and I had my pink Balenciaga hourglass bag, which I love that bag to death. Obviously, I'm like in a full face of makeup like I have on right now. And we're just sitting there chatting, eating our dinner. I ordered so much food, you guys. I ordered so much food that they had to bring another table to put next to our table. And I went all out because I'm like, you know what? I've never had a wagyu steak. I don't know what it's called, but I haven't had one of those steaks before. So I'm like, you know what? It's on the menu. I feel like this is the place to get it. I got that. I got a bunch of other things because the portions are kind of small. So we eat our food, dinner comes and goes. We're eating our dessert, and a different waiter comes up to the table and gives us the bill. My friend opens it, and it just had her food on it, which was really weird. We're like, okay, maybe they made a mistake. But a few minutes later, our waitress comes, and she asks, oh, is it together or separate? And my friend says together because it's just her bill. She brings the machine, punches in the amount into the machine, and my friend pays it. And then she's like, okay, have a good night. Thank you. And then she goes, and we're like, what the hell? The amount of food that I ordered, like with tax and tip and everything, would have been over $200. It would have been like 250, I think. Like it was a lot of food and I got a lot of expensive stuff. So I'm like, there's no way she could have forgotten such a huge chunk of the bill and a huge portion of her tip. So as soon as she told us thank you and good night, me and my friend make a run for it. We run out, or like we walk like briskly out of the restaurant, and then we get on the street and we sprint because we're like, oh my God, they're going to realize any minute they made a mistake. And we run for like 3-4 minutes until we get to another bar, and we just go in and sit there and like digest what just happened. I had a theory that, so I told you I was sitting in the booth. I had a view of the whole restaurant, and I noticed that there was this man at the bar who kept looking at me. Like his stool was turned towards me, basically. His body was turned towards me. And I caught him looking at me quite a few times. At one point, my friend went to the bathroom and I was at the table alone, and he had an unobstructed view of me, basically. And it was at that point that I realized he was looking at me. And so when I realized that, I held his eye contact for a minute to basically say, like, I see you looking at me. So my theory is that this guy paid for my dinner. And I don't have any way of confirming this, but the two options were that either the waitress made a huge mistake and left $200+ off the bill, which I think is very unlikely, or that someone, be it that guy or somebody else, covered my bill. And I think it's more likely that my bill was paid for than the waitress making a mistake, because that just, If she forgot one item, like a coffee or an appetizer or whatever, fine. If you forgot every single thing that I ordered, that to me does not seem like a mistake. So, all that to say, my friend and I were dressed a little bit better than everybody at that restaurant. I like to overdress everywhere I go, not to the point of like me looking like I'm begging for attention, but I just like to look a little bit more overdressed than usual. Like, look at me right now. I'm wearing a freaking fur cardigan to record this episode, but that's just my style. I like to be a little bit more dressed up. And I think compared to the people around us, I mean, there weren't that many people, but compared to the people around us, we looked a little bit more elevated. My guess is that maybe if someone did end up paying for the bill, we ran out of the restaurant too quickly for them to come up to the table and like let me know. Anyway, all this to say, I'm using this as an example because let's just assume that that man paid for my bill or some guy paid for it, okay? To do that for somebody and to spend that much money for a stranger, that stranger needs to sort of give off some kind of vibe, some energy that implies that they are worth you spending that on them. And I feel like that goes back to the strategy of the crown. It looks like you're kind of like wearing this crown on your head and emanating that energy. So that's my theory. Let me know your thoughts or if something similar like this has happened to you, because I'm just very curious about this. This is such a huge mystery to me. We still talk about it with my friends. But yeah, in the past, when I've had things paid for me or bought for me, like a bottle of champagne or something, the waiter or waitress comes up to our table and says, like, this gentleman bought a bottle of champagne for your table. Or if it's anonymous, they'll be like, somebody, paid your bill, somebody did whatever. So it's just really weird to me. So throughout this episode, I want you to have two people in mind. The first one is the most confident, dignified person you know. And the second person is the least confident person you know. Like I said earlier, it is fully within your power to set your own price. Just like a business and how companies will set whatever prices they want, like Chanel, Hermes will charge tens of $1,000s for a bag, you can set your own price. If you don't think that people don't look at you and appraise you, then I'm sorry to break it to you, but we live in a hyper capitalist world and everything has a value assigned to it. Think of the term high value woman, which I hate. I hate that term, but think about that term. There's a value assigned to a woman or a high value man. There's a value assigned to that person. And we value things that have a high price set to it. We value that. For example, if that guy paid for my dinner and knew that he was paying 200, 250 bucks, he must have thought that I'm worth spending that money. Like, no one's holding a gun to his head saying you have to pay for this woman's dinner. So people assign values to everything and everyone. Think about it this way. You are a business owner. You set the price on yourself, and the market you are trading and selling in is the world. And if you ask for less, you will always get it. You will always get less if you ask for it. But you can't just go around asking for more either. If you ask for more, you have to look like someone who deserves it. And how do you look like you deserve it? We're going to talk about that. So let's talk about how to apply the strategy of the crown. And we do this by using the 3Ds, by being dignified, different, and distinctly feminine. I kind of cheated with the third one, but you know what I mean. Okay, the 3Ds, triple D, like the bra size, double D. If that's your bra size, this will be easy to remember. So the first D is dignified. And this is the most important one and also the hardest one because it's internal. It's something you actually have to believe. The first step to actually believe that you deserve to be treated like a queen is you need to have confidence and self-love. If you don't, then literally none of this is going to work. So if you still have work to do to build up your confidence and build up your self-love, then pause this episode, go either listen to one of my previous episodes about building up your self-love or whatever, use whatever other resources, doesn't necessarily have to be mine. And then come back to this episode in a few months once you've built up that confidence and you can confidently say that you are a self-loving person. Anyway, what I was saying is how you carry yourself reflects what you think of yourself. If you think you're the baddest bitch in the building. I use the name. And I'm not kidding. Every fiber of your existence will show that because of your body language, because of the way you physically carry yourself and your body. You can tell exactly how much a person loves themselves by the way they talk, stand, sit, walk, everything. Your body language will give everything away because it is the subconscious language that we speak. You can follow everything else that we're going to discuss here with the other two D's, the double D's. Put my hand on my chest when I said that. But if you don't have the confidence that you need, then your body language will 100% give you away because you're going to physically shrink yourself and try to go into the shadows. Remember how I said think about the most confident and least confident people you know? Think about that confident person. How do they carry themselves? If we're talking about the strategy of the crown and how we're wearing a crown that creates this aura around us, the jewels and the sparkles of the crown are coming from your sense of self-love and confidence. Without that, you are literally just wearing a plastic tiara from the dollar store and everyone can see that. Again, the way you carry yourself reflects what you think of yourself, and people will take your lead. They will not value you more than you value yourself, because your self-value, that price that you set for yourself, is like the minimum wage, basically. It's like the bare minimum. And no one's going to go above that if that's all they have to offer. So again, think about that confident person you know. Think about the way that you respect their boundaries versus how you maybe push the boundaries of other people. Think about how differently you interact with that person versus the way you interact with the least confident person you know. Compare those two. I'm sure there is a huge difference. And if there's not, then maybe you're thinking of the wrong people. In the same way that you're taking their lead on how to treat them, other people are taking your lead on how to treat you. So your self-love, your self-respect, your sense of dignity is a barometer for how other people treat you and for what they think they can get away with, how far they think they can push you, push your boundaries, disrespect you, disrespect your time. It's all in your price that you set. You can't set that price until you truly feel like you are a queen and feel a full sense of self-love. So that is your absolute first step. That is the first D, dignified. The second D is different. So to be regal, to be like a queen, you have to be different from the people around you and from the women around you. So think about the most confident person you know versus the least confident person you know in a crowd. How do those two people stand out or blend into a crowd? Part of that differentiation comes from your sense of dignity, which we just talked about, the first D. The other part comes from your appearance. If we're thinking about this as you being a business owner, right? You're setting your own price and you're putting yourself in the market that is the world. Think of this D as your branding. If you look the same as everyone else, then there's nothing special or distinctive about you. You're literally just another person. And when there's a lot of something, it's perceived to not have a lot of value. You know the laws of supply and demand, which I don't like calling these laws because supply and demand is literally just made up and economic is a social science, it's not a physical science. But think of supply and demand. When there's a lot of something, the demand goes down. It's less rare, it's less valuable because there's a lot of it. So if there's a lot of people who look just like you and carry themselves just like you're not going to be perceived as being regal and valuable like a queen. I know it sounds harsh, but this is how you have to think of it because this is how other people are thinking of it. I think there's a big component of this that has to do with unlearning because when we're growing up, especially when we're teenagers, we want to blend in. That's a key to social survival, especially in high school and in adolescence. But that norm of blending in stays with us into adulthood. And that doesn't help when we're trying to stand out. So we have to reprogram ourselves to get rid of that because, again, that is another way to control us, especially to control women. You don't want to blend in. You're not like everybody else. You are special and you have to carry yourself like it. I've said this before in law number 3, but people judge by appearances. The easiest cheat code in the patriarchy is to look put together and elegant. If we want to continue with the business analogy, your appearance will be like your website or your Instagram page or whatever you use to reach out to people. If you have some janky, ugly looking website or a hideous Instagram with like really crappy posts, then people are going to be like, ew, like, I don't want to look at this. I don't want to engage with this. There's this cognitive dissonance between your appearance and the way that you act. So if you act like a peasant but you look like a queen, then you're more likely to be treated like a queen because people default to your appearance. Our brains are hardwired to actually trust appearances more. And this reminds me of this TikTok that I saw of this girl. She's like, when you're a girl farting in the club and nobody thinks it's you. And that's so true because if you look pretty and you don't look like you're going to rip a fart in the club or wherever you are, then people aren't going to think it's you. They're going to pin it on somebody next to you who's ugly or a man. And the way you carry yourself and dress, it is context dependent. Like you're going to dress differently for work versus, going out to run errands or going out for dinner. And so you do have to think about where you're going. For example, let's say you're going to a networking event. What would I wear to a networking event? So I'm assuming that this is happening after work. People are coming to this event straight from work. So they're wearing their work attire. So they might be wearing, and I think I'm talking about women, a dress shirt and dress pants. Maybe some women are wearing a blazer. Some women are wearing a skirt with a nice shirt. They're going to look business casual, not too formal, but also still put together. But from my experience, a lot of women wear pants to the office. I personally never wear pants. Like unless I'm at home or at the gym, I'm not wearing pants. So the way I differentiate myself is by always wearing a skirt or a dress. Just right off the bat, I know that if I'm going to a networking event with a lot of professional women, that by wearing a skirt and maybe wearing more vibrant colors, I am going to stand out in a sea of business casual women wearing black, white, gray, beige. And you're still meeting the dress code, but you're doing it in a way that's a little bit different, that's going to make you stand out, and that's more feminine, which we're going to talk about later. So remember the example of how I got my dinner paid for, supposedly, just by minding my business and dressing nice and dressing a little bit nicer than the people around me and a little bit more feminine. It's not that hard. Most people accept the price that they've been set by society and they don't do anything to change it because they don't think they can change it. And they're not going to put a lot of effort into their day-to-day appearance. So the biggest differentiator between you and everybody else is that effort. Because when it looks like you put an effort into yourself, that signals to other people that you expect effort from them. If this is the bare minimum I'm giving to myself, which is a lot, then imagine how much I'm going to expect from other people. You can't ask people to give things to you that you cannot give yourself. And if you're going to ask people to give things to you that you can't provide to yourself, you better look like you can provide that for yourself first. Let me say this one last thing about this D before we move on to the next D. Being different doesn't mean you're trying to be better than other people. It doesn't mean you are seeing yourself as superior to other people. It just means when you're in a crowd, when you're in a room, you stand out. Part of that has to do with your dignity. Part of that has to do with the way you look. So you're not competing with anyone. You're just setting yourself apart. You're building your own brand. Now, the last D, and the one that I sort of cheated with my letters, is distinctly feminine. But I'm going to stand by this, okay? Because the distinctly part is important too. So this D goes hand in hand with the previous one because, like I said, if very few people put effort into their appearance, even fewer people are putting effort into being feminine. If you want to milk the patriarchy like a cow, you want to be a patriarchy farmer, you have to pretend to fit into the female archetype that it likes. You have to. I'm sorry. I know some people might not want to hear this. Like I said earlier in this episode, we're all acting, and this is one of the roles that you have to act in, right? Doesn't mean you're changing who you are. It just means that you have to assume this role, and working backwards from the goals that you want to achieve, you might have to assume this role. That archetype is that of a very feminine woman because it perfectly complements a man's masculinity. And don't mistake this for belittling yourself, because by manipulating your image and your persona, you're controlling the narrative. You're controlling the situation that you're in. You're making the man or whoever person it is you're dealing with, you're making them act in the way that you want to get the outcome that you desire. You are in control, not them. Like, for example, I squatted 330 pounds the other day, and I promise you I was not dainty when I did it. But if you catch me outside the gym, I'm going to act like everything is going to break my nail if I lift it. So it's just about controlling the narrative and controlling your persona. You're acting, right? At the end of the day, we're all acting. The man has the token power position because he's coming off as the person who leads in front of everyone else. The token power position is what you're showing to other people. You are the director and the producer and the script writer and the casting director and everything. He's just the actor. So who has the real control? Because at the end of the day, men command power by being loud and obnoxious, but women can command power with nothing but their presence. So when you're carrying yourself in a distinctly feminine way, you are appealing to men's subconscious, their hardwiring of being hunters and protectors, right? You're literally hacking their psyche. You make them want to help you because it's going to make them feel masculine. It's going to make them feel better about themselves. And like I said in law number 8, it all boils down to how you make people feel about themselves. By being feminine in your behavior, you're not just appealing to these social constructs that we have to navigate and act within. You're working with the male psychology and you are hacking their hardwiring. It goes way deeper than just social constructs. So that's the behavior part. Now let's talk about the appearance and dress part of it. So when I say to be distinctly feminine in your appearance, I'm talking about you doing things that men can't do. For example, a man can wear a dress, like anyone can wear a dress, but men are built like a book, like a hardcover book. So they're not going to look good wearing a dress. There's just something so beautiful and elegant about a woman wearing a dress and heels, or just like a nice dress, a nice pair of shoes that just looks so nice on the feminine figure that men can never pull off. So that's what I mean by distinctly feminine. It's carrying yourself and doing things in a way that men can't do. It just doesn't work when men do it. I already go into a lot of detail about how to look feminine and come across as feminine in law number 3. So I'll just give a quick summary here. But basically what I say is you want your whole appearance, the whole package, to check those boxes. So your perfume, your dress or skirt, your heels, they don't have to be stilettos, but you want them to be, again, something that men can't wear. Even a kitten heel works. And you want to have rosy cheeks and full lips because those are signals of high estrogen, which the male brain will register as you being a compatible mate. So again, hacking the hardwiring. And for some bonus, a small purse, because when you have a teeny tiny little purse, it kind of signals to them that, I'm not caring a lot. I'm not providing for people. I'm not the mom of the group. I just have my essentials, my lip gloss, my keys, whatever, and that's it. This actually reminds me, one time I went on a date like years ago, wearing cargo pants, black cargo pants, and a gray crop top and chunky Doc Marten boots. And I was carrying a designer bag. First of all, I looked like a construction worker with a Saint Laurent bag, but also I looked like a hip hop dancer too. It looked so weird. I have a picture of it because I took a photo of myself like right before I left the house. And I'm like, if I was a guy and I went on a date with a woman and I saw her wearing this, I would be like, what the hell is going on? Anyway, another thing about dressing, which some people might not want to hear, is to dress modestly. Okay. And I'm not saying this as some kind of old prude or whatever, but when I think about people like Jackie Kennedy or Coco Chanel, even Melania Trump, they look very attractive, very sexy, very beautiful, but they are not showing a lot of skin. I feel like all this empowerment about women showing their skin, wearing whatever they want it's actually not empowerment at all, because showing a lot of your body and showing a lot of skin is actually a form of granting people access to your body. They're not necessarily touching you or sleeping with you, but they're getting visual access to your body, and that's still access. I really believe that this whole mindset that women should just wear whatever they want, skin tight, revealing, blah, 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 like, to me, that's counterproductive. And I feel like that was something made by men so they can look at women's bodies even more. Part of what gives women leverage over men is the mystery behind that seduction and that sexuality. Because men are so obsessed with sex. They are so obsessed with it. And if you're dangling it right in front of them and giving zero mystery, zero tease, zero seduction, you're leaving nothing to the imagination. And you've lost a lot of your leverage that way without even letting him sleep with you. For me, I have a rule: if the top part of my outfit is revealing, then the bottom part can't be. And vice versa. If I'm like wearing a really short skirt, then I'm obviously going to wear tights underneath. And then my top is not going to be low cut or super tight or anything like that. So it's top or bottom. So there you have it. Those are the 3 Ds, the triple Ds. And I know it's a lot of information, but it's truly, like, it's really simple. Love yourself, be different, be feminine. By doing even one of these, you are already going to be different, because most people don't like themselves that much. They don't, and they're afraid to stand out. And most people don't really think to even be feminine, or distinctly feminine for that matter, because they're trying to fit in. So just use that to your advantage. You are already miles ahead. But just remember that you don't compete with people, you don't put people down. And so this is a good segue into the reversals of this law, because you don't want to put people down to lift yourself up. That is a sign of insecurity. If you're breaking people down, it's because you see them as a threat, or because you're envious or jealous of them. And those are all symptoms of insecurity. And honestly, every time I've seen a person try to put someone down, or even put me down, or try to at least, what I see behind that person is a broken person. It's a self-loathing person. Because if you're actually confident, if you actually like yourself, you have no need to put anybody else down. It doesn't make you feel good. And another symptom of insecurity is arrogance. Don't mistake arrogance for confidence, because confident people know their strengths and are proud of them. Arrogant people know their weaknesses and try to hide them as strengths. So if you're arrogant, that means you're not confident. And if you're confident, you have no need to be arrogant. So, closing thoughts. Once you develop self-love, you literally have all the tools you need to carry yourself in a regal way, like a queen. Because once you hit that first D, dignified, most of the work is done for you. It's literally a matter of making your self-belief become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your best outfit is your dignity. That is your birthday suit. Your birthday suit is your dignity. Because we're all born as dignified humans, and it's the world and society that tries to break us down and break that dignity out of us. So you've got this. You are already a queen. And don't forget your new bra size, which is triple D. And also, don't be afraid to ask, okay? You have no idea how much free stuff I've gotten just by asking. Because if you ask, usually the worst thing that can happen is they say no. But if you don't ask, the best thing that can happen is you don't get what you want. And the worst thing that can happen is you lose opportunities and you stay in the same place or even regress. So the best case scenario when you don't ask is actually the worst case scenario when you do ask, if that makes sense. And why would you want to put yourself in a worst case scenario? Anyway, this is becoming a tangent. All I need to say now is thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to all the new listeners who've tuned in. I'm so grateful for all of you being here, and I hope that you're getting something out of this. As always, my DMs, my comments are always open, so let me know what you think. Let me know how you interpreted my story about my dinner, because it's still a mystery to me. Anyway, that's all for today. Last thing is, don't forget you are the baddest bitch in any building you step foot in. Okay? Until next time, stay bad. Love you. Bye.